You may be asking, why should I even care about sustainable finance? Maybe you're not in the finance industry, so you don't see how this relates to your organization or your career. Or maybe you are in the finance sector, and from your perspective, all your organization cares about, whether right or wrong, is just making money. Is sustainable finance really here to stay? Or is it just a bunch of made-up garbage that's used to sell the same old ideas or systems? Well, maybe, I guess at least in some cases. But we believe that real changes are taking place and that sustainable finance is here to stay. And here are a few reasons why. The most obvious reason why sustainable finance is growing and likely to stick around is due to the fact that people around the world are increasingly aware of and concerned about climate change and the various environmental challenges related to it that are not only predicted but already being identified around the world. Extreme weather events, rising sea levels, loss of biodiversity, and other effects of climate change pose significant risks to economies and societies worldwide, compelling governments and corporate leaders around the world to take action. Now, it's going to take a monumental and prolonged effort to tackle these problems, and sustainable finance helps direct investments toward projects and businesses that mitigate these risks and contribute to a low-carbon, climate-resilient future. Now, additionally, the attention driven by all forms of media is causing companies to consider how sustainability will impact their reputation. For the time being, companies that prioritize sustainability in their operation and decision-making are often better positioned to manage risks, attract and retain talent, and enhance their reputation among consumers, investors, and other stakeholders. So using the lens of sustainable finance within their own operations and strategic decision-making can also help businesses demonstrate their commitment to responsible practices. Now, on a similar note, corporate stakeholders of all kinds are much more aware of and concerned about social inequality and inclusive growth. And while it may seem like an unlikely hero, believe it or not, sustainable finance is a key tool in alleviating these concerns. Sustainable finance promotes investments that address social challenges such as poverty, inequality, and access to essential services like healthcare and education. Now, by fostering inclusive growth, sustainable finance can contribute to a more stable and prosperous society. Now, probably one of the single most important reasons that sustainable finance is rapidly growing is quite simply the fact that investors are demanding it. Investors at all levels, but especially influential institutional investors, are increasingly aware of the risks and opportunities associated with all types of ESG factors. Thus, sustainable finance allows those investors to align their portfolios with their values and the values of their core stakeholders, as well as to manage risks and capitalize on the opportunities arising from the transition to a more sustainable economy. Now, beyond customer and investor demand, changes in the regulatory environment are also a compounding factor and key reason why the finance sector is integrating more sustainable practices. Governments and regulators worldwide are introducing policies, regulations, and initiatives to support the transition to a more sustainable economy. Now, these measures include climate disclosure requirements, green bond standards, and sustainable finance roadmaps, which encourage and in some cases require organizations in many sectors to incorporate sustainability into their financial systems and decision-making processes. And those policy initiatives and targets are not only being implemented on the national level. There are a number of global commitments and targets that are driving sustainable finance. For example, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and the Paris Agreement have set ambitious targets to address global challenges, and many countries have agreed to implement these principles and targets into their own laws and policy priorities. So sustainable finance will play a crucial role in mobilizing the financial resources required to achieve these goals. Now, finally, it's important to remember the simple fact that sustainable finance generally leads to long-term value creation and financial performance. So even if your organization's only goal is to make money, research indicates that companies with strong ESG performance are more likely to outperform their peers in the long run. Sustainable finance helps investors identify well-managed companies with lower risk profiles and higher potential for long-term growth. But it also applies within organizations, helping them make financial decisions that are needed to maintain profitability over the long term. So to put it simply, we think sustainable finance is here to stay. In fact, we believe that sustainable finance sector is going to continue to grow for the foreseeable future. So what about you? Do you believe in the principles of sustainable finance or think it's just a new way to describe the same old principles of finance? Do you think that sustainability and finance can even coexist in their current form?